Hello and welcome to Creature Club, a show where we, your favorite hosts, talk about the monsters in the D&D Monster Manual for 5th edition. I, Tim, will be joined by my fellow co-host, Daniel.
Hello.
And the absent Mikey.
Telepathy?
Oh.
So if you want to drop in like a Mikey sound clip there, that'd be pretty cool.
Maybe I'll find some. I'll have him saying telepathy or something. He's been killing it recently, though.
He has, He's come back around. It's a great character arc.
It is true character development, indeed. So this week we're going to be finally putting the final nail in the coffin of these demons. I don't know if a coffin would quite contain these demons, but we're using it as a metaphor. I don't know why I'm explaining this. Anyway, so we're going to be going into...
it's really helped me. Now I understand what's going on.
Oh, perfect. Good. Well, if it helped you, it helped somebody else. So there we go.
Excellent.
If this is your first time listening to us, this is part, I think, 10 of Demons. So it's an unusual spot to jump in.
12. Yeah.
Is it 12?
I think it might be part 12. It's either part 12 or part 11, but it's
up there.
It's deep in the paint. Like, it's an unusual place to start, but God bless you, sir.
Yeah, well, I think the most recent episode of a thing is of a show like this, I suppose, which is more of a documentary than a kind of a running series. That it's pretty okay. So this is going to be our last episode of Demons, and it is going to involve the Yochlol. Do you have any history about the Yochlol? Because I could not find anything that was even remotely used to inspire this bizarre creature, which is known as a handmaiden of Lolth.
Yeah. So the Yochlol first appeared in the adventure module Queen of the Demon Web Pits from 1980. By David T. Sutherland with Gary Garrett. It's David T. Sutherland the third, interestingly enough. I wonder if he's done other stuff. I don't think he's done anything else we've looked into, but maybe. No. So they first appear as the players explore one of Lolth's spider ships. There's a lot of sort of abyssal terminology here. I'm looking at a map of the spider ship. It is what it sounds like. It's a big fucking spider body, basically.
Oh, right. Is it like that big mecha in the Wild Wild West movie with Will Smith?
It's, you know what? Actually, it's not uncommon. It's probably bigger than that, if you can believe that.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Just because the head of the spider has loads of bedrooms in it. It's weird to think of demons using bedrooms. So sorry. This is Queen of Demon Web Pits. Pips. So it's suggested as either part of the climax of a series of giant adventures, which are Q1, 2, 3, and the Drow series, which is D1, 2, and D3.
I don't know what that means.
So basically, this is Queen of the Demon Pits Q1, and basically there are previous adventures that have similar numbered labeling, and the idea is that you use them to tell, I can either run Queen of the Demon Pits on its own, or I can use that giant series I have and run them first, and then the Drow series I have, and then the idea is those adventures seed the notion that eventually you may have to fight the Demon Queen herself. And so obviously then in this adventure you do. You go to her plane, her level of the abyss. There's a picture near the start of the adventure, which is sort of her.
I thought she had a spider, not a plane.
There's boo. There's initial sort of the front art is the party fighting a lot of different kinds of bugs.
Ooh.
It's not a great piece of art, to be honest.
Not exclusively spiders.
It's spider adjacent things.
Arachnids?
Yeah, basically, yeah. But one of them is just a spider with a woman's head. So spider adjacent.
Oh, okay.
There's a map of the Demon Web, which is obviously the place this adventure takes place in. The map it's just sort of bad to look at. It's
just
not
generally unpleasant.
It's not bad in the sense. So basically to describe it, it's a series of overlapping corridors. It's almost like a Celtic knot.
Ooh.
and like it's a dungeon shaped like that. The idea is obviously it's a spider web or whatever.
Right.
But all I can think is that that's just going to be such a pain in the butt to run.
Yeah.
I know that's me being kind of pessimistic. Like it's obviously kind of an interesting notion, the idea of this overlapping dungeon. It's kind of exciting, but like all I can think is like, honestly, man, just I'm fine. Like,
yeah, I don't need a map for this. I can just tell my players that like they're lost. Like you are seeing
lost.
familiar patterns on the wall because you keep walking in this slightly curving straight line, and then you're like, I've recognized that rock. It looks like, I don't know, Chelsea Clinton or something.
That rock looks... I feel like I'm going crazy.
That manatee looks like a mermaid.
And then the second map is the Lolth's spider ship, which has 4 decks, including like a big ritual chamber and a bunch of bedrooms, which I still think is kind of weird. I guess drow sleep. So,
all right.
Yeah. And then there's a picture of what I think is Lolth, or it could be someone else.
Ooh.
But it's some sort of female drow in sort of a spider themed bikini.
Oh. Right.
With a nearby. Oh, it's one of the guys from this book. It's the Garistro. Let me just check that.
Garistro's big ape man.
No, sorry, the Glabrizu. And on the other side, I don't know if we have that guy. I think it might be a Hezrau. So yeah, so we've got kind of an all-star cast.
Hey.
At the front here, and then a description of what the demon web is and how there's special rules for traveling through it because it's dangerous, and how the party have special rules for resting and regaining spell slots because they're in a plane of the abyss. Like clerics can't regain high level magic because of the influence of Lolth, which is kind of cool.
Whoa.
So yeah, sorry. So to get back on track, that's the first time the Yochlol appeared. Yochlol appeared, and it's basically been pretty similar ever since. The main difference is that in the it has this feature in 5th edition, but in when it's first described, so in 5th edition it mentions this, but in 18 when it's first described, the notion that it is an intangible mist is sort of its default form rather than a form it specially takes, which is more sort of the mechanical consequence in the 5th edition book anyway.
Yeah. Because I did see in the research that I did do that he's not necessarily corporeal, that he does have a couple different like shapes that they defer to, basically.
Yeah.
I also saw that some of them will like either envelop or take on the shapes of some people because they're not really individuals in the like perfect sense, because a lot of their depictions that I've seen tend to give them a much more fluid kind of idea, and they are constantly dripping, so they're either losing part of themselves or they are constantly like developing this stuff out of the air, or it's a bizarre and fascinating creature that seems to be relatively unlimited and has this telepathy and can speak, has like, it says that it has a direct link between basically other Yochlols and Lolth, so they have a straight line to their demon queen, which I'm really struggling not to make a joke about the demon web being like the internet. And the demon web is their communications network, but I'll do my best not to. with spiders and webs, I'm doing my best here.
You're doing great. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you so much. I want to hear the information that you want to share without cutting across you being like, demon web, is that like the dark web and the deep web, and then there's the demon web? But, by pointing out that I have tried not to make those jokes, I have made those jokes, and here we are.
And here we are.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Yeah, and then it appears in every edition since. Got a lot of work in 2nd edition. It's this part of the Planescape campaign setting. We get a bit more detail about the notion that it's like as you say, Tim, they like serve directly Lolth and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's sort of been their way ever since. They haven't really got a lot of. They've effectively remained unchanged through every edition of the game. They've always been. The only difference is like in 5th edition, there's more of a notion that we get their what would be called in previous editions their true form,
right?
Which is this kind of slimy tree thing. We get that by default, and we get told it can go into other forms. Because even in the rules explanation, obviously this isn't the lore, but in the rules explanation of the Yochlol, it describes the form we see it in the art. It says it refers to that as its true form for the purposes of shape changing.
Right.
Whereas obviously previous versions of the game would say that the mist was its true form and it was only manifesting bits because it needs to like attack people, but like that it's otherwise incorporeal and doesn't actually need to incorporate except to do things.
Yochlol's incorporated. Shall we jump into the old description in this 5th edition?
Yeah, let's nail something down about this weird misty beast.
About this weird boy. So, the Yochlol. The Yochlols are the handmaidens of Lolth, extensions of the Spider Queen's will dedicated to acting as her spies, taskmasters, and agents of villainy. They attend their goddess in the demon web pits, but Lolth sometimes dispatches Yochlols to the material plane to guard her temples and to aid her most devout priestesses. Yochlols don't form outside Lolth's realm of demon web, and they serve no demon lords except their queen. Outside the abyss, a Yochlol can assume the guise of a female drow or monstrous spider to conceal its demonic form. In its true form, the fiend appears as a pillar of yellow slime with a single malevolent eye. In its drow and true form, a Yochlol's touch carries the same venomous touch as its spider form's bite.
That's a weirdly worded sentence.
Yeah. It also seems it gives itself a disadvantage by going into its spider form, but I suppose it's trying to like be consistent with its spiderness.
Yeah, basically.
Because if it gives away that it's not actually a big spider, and you like try to touch its leg or something, and then you're suddenly massively poisoned, then it's gonna give away the whole thing. Not that you'd want to touch a giant spider's leg, unless that's what you're into. No kink shaming here.
Yeah, exactly. Rule 0, no kink shaming.
My kink is touching giant spider legs. Well, best of luck.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty succinct.
It's got everything there. It's got everything we know about them. Nothing's really changed over the years, except, as I mentioned, the notion that I think when they were first described, we were kind of expected to believe that they began as mist and took form to fight, but could kind of revert to mist. Whereas now we have more the notion that it begins as kind of a slime pillar and can become mist amongst other things to transform. Although it being able to shape change was always something it could do as well. I think it changed into either like a female elf or a human, as well as a spider.
Do you think that they would use their shape change abilities to just change their like colors? Because it says that their true form is yellow, but if you were to turn into like a brown, because they look relatively tree-ish, at least in some of the depictions that we've seen, could they like blend into forests to like track people? Although they're not really, well, they're the spies within the demon web, but they're not, and they're only rarely dispatched. I did see actually that they were occasionally dispatched to witness sacrifices to Lolth, which is kind of fascinating. They're like it gives Lolth this like absence of omnipresence, which I think is kind of cool. Like, because that
I agree. Actually,
giving that linchpin to any kind of god is it kind of shuts down your player's ability to do anything in secrecy without using some kind of magical like cover over themselves. So using the Yochlols as Lolth's eyes is kind of fascinating, but have them so infrequently dispatched also limits her sight. But it's a cool kind of balance that they're trying to strike between these guys being immensely powerful, like manifestations of Lolth's influence, as opposed to like her will to a certain extent. It's kind of fascinating. I like them.
No, I think you're right, and I think even that notion, that's a really good point, because there's even an interesting idea there where like we're told that the Yochlol is uniquely a servant of Lolth, so maybe we kind of extend that notion and say that like Lolth only has Yochlols as servants, or alternatively, one of the ideas I like is that because the idea like they are the handmaidens of Lolth and extensions of the Spider Queen's will and their eyes, that maybe because like a spider we say that she has 8 Yochlol because that's how many eyes a spider has. And so that sort of setting a number to it is interesting immediately, because it raises the question of like, well, what happens if we get rid of one, or what happens if we get rid of all of them, or how much does that affect Lolth?
Maybe each of the Yochlol's eyes are like a duplicate of her own eyes. Like she herself has 8, and like if you cut them all off, she can still see through her normal eye, but like she can like dispatch her eye to see what the Yochlol is seeing at any point. That's kind of cool.
Agreed. I like that.
It does also say in the variant, the summoning variant for the demons, that a Yochlol has a 50% chance of summoning one Yochlol, which I think is also consistent with that idea that if Lol sees that one of her Yochlols is in some serious distress, having been beaten the shite out of, to put generally, by a party, that they can potentially summon another Yochlol. Because I feel like if they are manifestations of her being, then she's gonna feel whatever happens to them, even if it's like just an itch, or like not quite a, like if the Yochlol gets stabbed, she's not gonna feel like she was stabbed. She's gonna be like bing. It's gonna be like a spidey sense almost.
Yeah. And even like you say, like the idea that like Yochlols can't summon other demons, they can only summon other Yochlols, again reinforces the notion that the Yochlols and Lolth are kind of separate from the rest of the action of the Abyss.
Yeah.
Because they can't summon any like low level demons.
Which makes me feel like, Lolth is pretty separate entirely almost. Like she exists within the Abyss, which is as chaotic as we have been describing throughout this entire demon series, but she seems to be able to maintain some stability within herself and within her ranks and within her demon web. So maybe she's kind of developed some kind of resistance to it. And
maybe, yeah.
Her influence is such that she brings a certain amount of order to the chaos in the Abyss, and maybe that's a show of her strength that she can do that.
Yeah, very true.
How about that?
Shall we jump into the Sturtblick?
Let's do.
Yochlol, medium fiend, demon, shape changer, chaotic evil. So that covers everything we've kind of come to expect. I'm actually a little surprised it's medium and not large, because it looks pretty big.
That's the only thing I was going to say.
The art.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I mean, we know it's a shape changer. We know it can appear as mist, as fog, and it's chaotic evil because it's a demon, and that's just their thing. Armor class 15, natural armored. Cool. Yeah, fine. Just sort of, it's got some amount of armor on it.
It's a little bit hard to hit.
Hit points 136. That's again sort of fine, kind of solid enough. Speed 30 feet and a climb of 30 feet. So that obviously feeds into the notion of spiders and webs and climbing and blah blah blah. Although I bet this thing would look weird to watch if it was climbing somewhere. Okay, and then it has some pretty good stats. Strength of 15, dexterity of 14, constitution of 18, intelligence 13, wisdom 15, and charisma 15. So
which isn't a hugely impressive stat block, but with some of its other abilities, it definitely does still live up to the challenge rating 10.
Yeah, it's interesting as well that it doesn't have any very high aggressive stats. Like it doesn't have a high strength or dex for like attacking people, but it has a really high con for like extra health. It's just an interesting sort of structure for it to have.
Yeah, which is kind of strange, because like I would presume it would be kind of goopy and not very constitutive.
Yeah, me too. Saving throws. It's got Dex, Int, Wiz, and Ca, which are all +6 except for Int, which is +5. So that's interesting. Wiz and Dex are both very good saving throws to have, but I don't really know why it also has Int and Ca.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being particularly charismatic, although with its ability to shape change into a sexy lady, you know. Tim. No, I can't really think of much either. The intelligence might just be lending itself to the fact that it has the direct connection to Lolth, a literal god.
Yeah, that's fair.
But then at that point, you would think it has a much higher intelligence.
Yeah.
But maybe because it's just a fragment of Lolth, it doesn't have a particularly high.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's interesting just use of saving throws. I don't know what the idea is exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Maybe the idea is that like it just represents the notion that it can't very easily be like brainwashed or turned against its master, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyway, skills. Deception plus 10, which is very good. I think that means it has expertise in deception.
It does indeed.
Because that would be +4, +4, +2 from the charisma.
Yep.
And then insight +6, so it's just got training in insight.
Mm-hmm. Let's just imagine, like, how would you train for insight? You're like having a montage of learning how to look into people, just the like nodding with your thumb and your index finger, just stroking your chin, just looking at people.
I just really like the idea that like you lie to it and it just does a real squint with its one big eye. Real nasty squint. Okay. Damage resistances. So what we've kind of come to expect from demons at this stage: cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercings, and slashing from non-magical attacks. So sort of standard issue. Damage immunities, poison, and condition immunity, the poisoned condition. Again, sort of very much what every demon, with I think one exception, might have. Actually, I think they are all still immune to poison.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Although I believe I found one that wasn't.
Cool. I'll let you check, and I will keep reading.
Yeah.
Senses: dark vision, 120 feet, and a passive perception of 12, which is from its wisdom modifier. It speaks 3 languages, which is really interesting. It speaks Abyssal, Elvish, and Undercommon. So Abyssal because it's a demon, Elvish because it's able to turn into a drow, and Undercommon because the drow are associated with the Undercommon. So that's pretty interesting, actually. The Underdark. God.
But yeah, they're all condition and damage immune to poison.
Oh yeah, grand. Okay,
I was wrong.
And it's a challenge 10 monster, which means it's worth 5,900 experience points.
Delicious.
And it is an appropriate challenge for 4 level 10 adventurers.
Having thought about the skills, the deception and insight, maybe that's like you can't lie to a liar, basically. Like, because he's so good at deception, he'll be able to see if you're telling the truth or a lie. So maybe that's why they gave him the insight.
Yeah, and the idea that it's a useful skill for like a spy to have, like if you're using one as kind of a long-term villain and it's interrogating the party or whatever, it's handy from that point of view for it to be able to kind of squint at them and be like, really?
It raises its one eyebrow and you're like, are you surprised or are you curious or well, I don't understand what you're doing with your eyebrow.
I talk first. I don't know how this works.
Although, looking at the illustration, he kind of has 2 brows on either side of his one eye. So maybe he would raise just one of them. And then you're like, are you just incorporeal? I don't understand you. Humanoid facial expressions do not work with weird goop boys.
Yeah. It's very upsetting. I don't like it.
Yeah, stop. Get out of my face. So let's jump into the old abilities.
Yeah.
Unless you have another thing to say.
I was only going to mention, I really like that it has 3 specific languages it speaks. I like that they are thematic. I like that it doesn't have telepathy because that makes it unique amongst demons. And also, I like that it means that it might struggle to communicate with some parties.
Yeah. It also, it kind of removes, to a certain extent, its ability to speak with Lolth, but it may just try to like remove that telepathic ability from the stat block to remove confusion about whether it can actually telepathically communicate with things.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah. I know, yeah, exactly. Like, as in if it said telepathy, people would be like, can it always communicate with Lolth? Like, can we use it as a hotline? Like, whereas this way it's like, it's kind of more of a notional thing that like Lolth understands what its Yochlols see, but doesn't necessarily have a direct connection from the point of view of like being a thing you can manipulate in the context of the game.
Right.
That is more like a sort of an abstracted notion.
Indeed. So, abilities. Shape Changer. The Yochlol can use its action to polymorph into a form that resembles a female drow or giant spider, or back to its true form. Its statistics are the same in each form. Any equipment it is wearing or carrying isn't transformed. It reverts to its true form if it dies. Oh. So this is one of the very few things that it doesn't stick any stuff to it.
It doesn't get to keep its gear, yeah. Huh. So in that sense, it's more like a werewolf or a lycanthrope than a kind of traditional shape changer with control over their powers.
Right.
The Quasit has the same thing when it transforms. It doesn't get to...
It?
Yeah, when the Quasit shape changes, it doesn't get to keep any stuff it's carrying.
Oh, I see.
But that's
it's a tiny boy, so it wouldn't be carrying much.
yeah, exactly. I think it's also because it's small that like it might be like easy to manipulate if it was able to disappear small things.
Yeah. So it kind of gives it a strange thing for when it reverts to its kind of human form or its drow form, that like whatever it had been using to convince other people, it has to remain in that form in its like overworld spy form for an extended duration. Otherwise it will be found out because it hasn't like either it like consistent, although changing outfit is not a thing that would surprise a lot of people in the real world. So maybe I've just come to expect that all people in D&D just always wear.
Have like signature outfits that they're constantly wearing.
Yeah.
Like they're always wearing a red shirt and black trousers.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
like that's a weird notion.
Yeah, like all of my characters that I've built into my world have one look.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, yeah, like of course they do because
Yeah.
functionally
Because consistent theming. And
yeah, because functionally it's very useful for your characters to have one outfit so that people can always recognize them. But like
recognizable and
yeah, exactly. But yeah, like and also because it doesn't really matter from your player's point of view, like what they're wearing, except for maybe a description, a bit of context for who they are. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, they could change clothes. Like, I thought you were going to say that when they turn into a drow, they will be presumably nude, and that's going to be a problem they're going to have to solve.
Well, it's kind of the opposite. They'll be dressed as a drow, and then they'll turn into the either spider form or their true form. And if they turn into their true form, they're just going to have their clothes just sticking to them, which maybe will be handy for them because they'll like just slink away with this like tunic and tabard and sword or whatever they're carrying as their drow form. But turning into the spider, you're going to see a spider with some clothes draped around it, just kind of awkwardly or torn.
Presumably it'll burst out of them, or
yeah.
The main thing I think about the shape changer is that it's interesting that you can transform into. It says a female drow, which obviously makes sense because Lolth is sort of the queen of drow, and they're a matriarchal society. So why would you want to be a male drow, or a giant spider? And that's the thing that confuses me. I feel like in most contexts where you want to be a giant spider, you actually just want to be a normal sized spider.
Yeah.
From the point of view of them being spies, a normal sized spider sounds a lot more useful.
Like as great as Shelob was in the Lord of the Rings,
yeah,
its size was definitely more of a hindrance to it than if it was about a normal human size spider. Even like that's still a pretty large spider.
It had some real difficulty eating hobbits. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, and if it was smaller, maybe that would have been easier. But like, yeah, like when you think about the notion that it turns into a giant spider, which I think is a medium spider in 5th edition, although I'll tell you what, I'll check that while I'm talking. But like, compare that to just turning into a tiny spider, like an actual spider.
Maybe just giving it the ability to turn into any size of spider.
That's actually exactly what I was going to say, Tim. I was going to say it can turn into any spider creature.
Sorry, I stole the punchline from you.
No, it's just nice to know that we're in agreement. Like, I actually think that makes the most sense to just say, the giant spider is actually large.
Yeah. So it is a Shelob or an Aragog.
Yeah, so that would actually mean its size increases. So, well, actually, it says its statistics are the same in each form, so maybe it's a medium giant spider. It's a medium spider. I actually don't know, because I think that normally in Shape Changer, if you change size, it tells you change size. So if it doesn't say that, I'll assume it's supposed to just stay medium. But again, if you're not going to get big, like a big giant spider, would you not go small and then be a small spider?
Yeah, and then just disappear under
literally
like
disappear,
the door or just anywhere. Because that would be an excellent ability if you're trying to spy on someone.
Yeah.
If all your options is giant weird yellow cheese whiz tree trunk, humans, or giant fucking spider, you're not going to be a very good spy in the real world unless, with deception and insight as your trained abilities and your expertise, that'll get you so far. But being able to spy as a teeny tiny little spider or fly on the wall, essentially, that is going to dramatically increase your ability to spy.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you consider the notion that the only like humanoid it can turn into is a drow, which is, I mean, in most settings, drow are quite uncommon on the surface because they have sunlight sensitivity, which means that if they're on the surface, they have disadvantage on perception checks and attack rolls. So them being on the surface is weird at all. So that would mean that if you're on the surface as a drow, you're already kind of suspicious a lot of the time. So it's not the best.
And then even further again, specifically female drow in a matriarchal society, people are going to have a certain reverence for you and pay attention to you.
Yeah.
Like if you turned into a male drow, you'd maybe fade into the background a little more. So I think the restrictions that they've given to the shape changer ability on the Yochlol are a little bit, they leave a bit to be desired. So I would suggest, fiddling with yourself and maybe messing around with your metagaming players so that they don't quite know what exactly is going on. Unless there is a linchpin in your story that relies on it specifically only being able to do these, and that's kind of simplifying it for yourself.
I mean, like, I will say this, that I think that if I were going to change it, I would basically change it so that it has, because at the moment it has three forms. It has tree, as you say, like sort of cheese string mascot, female drow, or giant spider, and I would just change that to be like, cheese string mascot, female drow, or spider, just any spider. Like, it can be you can like literally like any spider per the monster manual or whatever. So like you can be like, I'm going to be like a really small spider to sneak away, or I'm going to deliberately turn into a big spider because it's good at fighting or whatever,
with an upper and lower limit on it. So you can't be like teeny tiny little spider that can float away on the breeze, or giant spider that is the size of the city.
Well, I mean, I think that like it as a challenge 10 monster, it's like there's not a spider in here that's more dangerous than it is the main reason I wouldn't be worried about it.
Okay.
If I just say like any spider per the monster manual, then like I think the monster manual has includes like normal size tiny spider. You just like, okay, well, you can do that, or you can do a big spider, or you can do the biggest spider. But even if you pick the biggest spider, like the biggest spider is maybe like a challenge 2 monster, so it's still like weaker functionally.
Would you like to read magic resistance and perhaps spider climb?
Cool. Okay, so so we've talked a little bit there about shape changer. So it has magic resistance, which is it has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. So we've seen that a lot on a good number of demons and on a good number of monsters overall. It's a power that generally represents the notion that the creature is just harder to affect with magic, either because of, in the case of demons, because they're kind of untamed elemental energy, so there's not like a form to attack as easily as there is with something from the material plane. Or it might represent that they are more resilient innately.
Indeed.
And then it also has spider climb, which is dead handy. It can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down and on ceilings, without needing to make an ability check. So what's cool is that power still works while it is shape changed, because while it's shape changed, it keeps its statistics. So the female drow can still spider climb, which is handy.
Yeah. I wonder, as a drow character type, if you wanted to play a character that is drow, would you have spider climb, do you think?
No,
I'm not sure.
I don't think
I sincerely doubt it, but that'd be cool.
There is the dark elf in the player's handbook. I think you just get like darkness. You get to cast like darkness once per day, and you have sunlight sensitivity, and you get some other spell, I think.
So you're not always a spider boy just because you're a drow. Maybe that's my racism showing. I'm sorry, everybody. Tim is racist. Confirmed. I mean, I confirmed that with the what was the guy that I went to, the Azer? Yeah, I was so mean to the bronze dwarf boys.
Oh yeah,
but,
it's fine. I'm sure they'll forgive you if you give them enough time.
Hopefully.
The road to recovery is long and extraordinarily painful.
And full of terrors,
Innate spellcasting. The Yochlol spellcasting ability is Charisma. Spell save DC 14. So, kind of maybe slightly low for a 10th level party, but still fine. The Yochlol can innately cast the following spells requiring no material components, which means it still requires somatic and verbal components, which might be important if you're using this thing as a spy. And of course, if it is changed form, it will still need those components. So if it's in its drow form, the drow will still need to speak as if it's casting a spell. But to be honest, I think people wouldn't be that surprised by that. If a drow showed up in town and started casting spells, they'd probably be like, oh yeah, drows are magic.
Sunday lunch continues.
Yeah, Sunday lunch continues past the feckin' tea. Where are those shortbreads? Okay, so it can cast 2 spells at will, detect thoughts, and web. So those are very handy spells for a spy and a spider, respectively.
A spy and a spider. Yeah.
I'm very ashamed. Once per day, and this is actually a pretty big deal. Once per day, it can cast Dominate Person.
That's a hefty spell. I think that's like 5th level.
I think you're right. I think it's at least 5th level. So yeah, Dominate Person is very powerful, but it can only cast it once per day. But it is very significant, and also it completely changed the course of a battle. But I suppose also it could change the course of a campaign because it could cast it on someone who isn't in the party. Because honestly, by the time you like cast this on a level 10 party, they'll probably have a way of dealing with it.
Although, you know, at 10th level, with a solid Dominate Person on the wizard or barbarian, I guess. Although the wizard has much more effect. Like, you're going to probably only... If you have only a limited number of Yochlols, for them, you're probably only going to come up against 1 or maybe 2 of these things at a time. So for them to have Dominate Person kind of levels the playing field to a certain extent with the... with regards it's kind of being outnumbered consistently. Because a challenge rating 10 is for a party of 4, as you said earlier. So being able to change it from a 4 against 1 to a 2 against 3 significantly levels the playing field. What were you going to say about the old paladin boy? I got across you.
No, it's okay. I was only going to mention that the because it's only DC 14, that they're very likely to succeed in any saving throws, either by like their effect or just because the paladin has the aura of everyone gets my charisma bonus to their saving throws, which is just sort of basically means the party does not fail saving throws anymore as long as they have the sense to stand near the paladin, like near enough to smell them, then it's not a problem.
Its final ability is Web Walker. The Yochlol ignores movement restrictions caused by webbing, which makes perfect sense.
Yep, spiders have that. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
It's just cheesy web itself anyway. So.
Actually, that's cool. Yeah, that'd be cool if you described it like, you know, it sprays a web and then it goes to walk through it and like it literally just merges with it and then unmerges out
in a kind of a Terminator
T-1000
exactly, kind of thing. Nice. It just walks through the webs.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so it's got some actions, but not too many, so we'll get through these nice and quick. Action. Multi-attack. The Yochlol makes 2 melee attacks, which are... Oh, okay, actually, that's interesting. And then it has Slam, or in spider form, it's a Bite, which is a melee weapon attack, plus 6 to hit, reach 5 feet, 10 feet in demon form. That's interesting. Ooh, cool. 1 target, hit 1d6 plus 2, or 5 on average bludgeoning, or piercing if it's in spider form, damage, plus 6d6, which is an average of 21 poison damage. So,
good lord, that's awkward.
So it's got 2 amendments to it, which is that if it's in demon form, the attack has a longer reach. If it's in spider form, the attack is piercing instead of bludgeoning, and it deals most of its damage through poison. Yeah,
with its touch. And with the multi-attack, it does say 2 melee attacks. So I think if you were in a giant spider form, you would get some of the giant spider abilities. And these are just like addendums to whatever bite or slam abilities.
Yeah.
Although
sorry, go on.
With the spider form, being able to bite twice, I think might seem like visually a little bit awkward to me. But that's just
I get that. No, I get that.
Being a little bit pedantic.
I do agree, actually.
Spiders bite you and then they inject their venom.
Yes.
Although this isn't actually a spider. This is just a spider form of a poison boy.
You could even use that as a way to suggest to your party that they're not actually fighting a spider, which could be cool.
Yeah.
But just to add to that, Tim, it does say melee attack, which means you could also make a shove.
Oh yeah.
In place of one of the attacks, which I think is the idea. Is that the idea is that like it's saying 2 melee attacks is deliberately flexible, as opposed to saying the Yochlol makes 2 slam attacks, which would be sort of the default wording. So I think the idea is that you can kind of shove someone to knock them prone and then get advantage on the bite, or just try to go for 2 bites.
Yeah, or in the drow form, you probably have a sword on you.
Oh, of course.
You get a double attack.
Very good point, Tim. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that you might just have a better weapon. Although in fairness, the slam is very good even if they do have a weapon. So maybe
it's pretty solid.
Maybe they mix it up. Maybe it's like they don't use it if they're fighting creatures that resist poison or something like that.
Yeah. Or at a certain point in the battle, they'll allow themselves to be disarmed, and then when they go to grab the drow, they'll become poisoned, and they'll basically slam attack themselves by touching her.
Yeah, true. It has one final power. Do you want to read that, Tim?
Of course, I would love to. Mist form. The Yochlol transforms into toxic mist or reverts to its true form. Any equipment it is wearing or carrying is also transformed. It reverts to its true form if it dies. While in mist form, the Yochlol is incapacitated and can't speak. It has a flying speed of 30 feet, can hover, and can pass through any space that isn't airtight. It has advantage on strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws, and it is immune to non-magical damage. Wow. While in mist form, the Yochlol can enter a creature's space and stop there. Each time that creature starts its turn with the Yochlol in its space, the creature must succeed on a DC 14 constitution saving throw or be poisoned until the start of its next turn. While poisoned in this way, the target is incapacitated, which I think is part of the poisoned condition.
No, it isn't. No,
Okay.
So incapacitated is it's the condition that just means you can't take actions or reactions.
Right. Okay.
So that's the idea, is that the Yochlol turns into mist and can't take any further actions or reactions. So it can't use its slam or its any other abilities it might have, or cast any spells, for example. But it can keep moving because incapacitation doesn't stop you moving.
Yeah.
And then it can poison things, and the poison condition is like you have disadvantage on attack rolls.
Disadvantage on saving throws.
Attack rolls and ability checks, but not saving throws, because the idea is that you can shake poison. Because the idea is that normally you use saving throws to shake those things, so it doesn't make it harder to lose the poison. It just makes you worse at other stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. Yeah, it's very cleverly designed in that way that you can become poisoned and it makes you worse offensively, but it doesn't take away your ability to stop being poisoned.
Yeah, with that action, it's kind of covered all its bases at this point, because in its mist form, it suddenly has advantage on strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws, which it doesn't have in its original stat block, and it also gives it a fly speed, so it can move, it can climb, and now it can fly. I think when we started at this, saying that its speed was 30 feet and that its climb was 30 feet, I was going to say, oh, well, in its mist form, it can probably fly, so it's strange that they didn't mention that. And then I looked over at the mist form and saw it has a flying speed of 30 feet, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll wait.
Yeah, that's interesting. But you make a good point, Tim. It's interesting that it doesn't have the speed listed there, and it doesn't say brackets like fly 30 feet in mist form.
Yeah, it doesn't clarify within its kind of earlier establishment of its abilities.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's almost like, it's interesting the way mechanically they've divided mist form from its shape-changing abilities.
Yeah.
I think the reason they've done that is because in the shape-changing, they specifically say it can turn into a spider or a female drow, but its abilities are the same. And so now with its mist form, they get to say, okay, it turns into mist and it gets all these new abilities. So rather than having one block that says it can turn into these things and nothing changes, or this other thing and everything changes, to instead make that a power that says you can turn into this one thing and everything changes, is kind of a little cleaner and kind of breaks up the rules in a way that makes more sense.
Yeah. It also says that anything that you're wearing or carrying is also transformed, so that breaks from the shape changer again. So they're really, really making the distinction between its ability to change between its physical forms and its ability to change into this mist form.
Yeah.
Which it takes an action, as opposed to being the shape changer ability, which would presumably, it uses an action.
It uses an action as well, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. I wonder does mist form count as transforming for the purposes of shape changing and relevant abilities? Like, the way that the moonbeam spell makes you revert to your true form. I wonder if you are mist, does the moonbeam force the Yochlol to turn back into its normal form? Because I don't know. Because it is a form and it describes it as a transformation. So to me, I would say, yeah, that makes sense, because that's what the power does. But I don't know if it's as clear as when it's a shape changer.
Do you think that they made this guy purposefully difficult to understand on first reading because he is such a chaotic, bizarre creature? Like, even just that slam ability was such a mouthful and kind of a brain teaser. Like, if you didn't have that written in front of you, and I'm sorry, listeners, if you don't have it written in front of you, it is bizarre to read.
It is interesting.
To hear.
It is interesting That's a very good point, actually, Tim. It is interesting when you compare that to other stat blocks, like even the lycanthropes, which we've mentioned before, because they are also shape changers. The lycanthropes will have powers where they'll say like bite, and then in brackets they'll say, whatever, wolf form only. And then it'll move on. And so what they could have done here is they could have said slam brackets demon form only, and then bite brackets spider form only, and then slam full stop, no stipulations. And then it would be like, okay, well, the differences are that it's piercing damage when it's the spider, and it's a longer range when it's the demon, and then it has the default slam, which all of them can use, but obviously, and maybe, I guess, and then on the third slam you say like not spider form only. So then like people know, okay, well, if it's the spider, it has to use this. If it's the demon, it has to use this. I guess on the final slam you could just say drow form only, just to clarify, just to make it obvious that like they all get, because they realistically, that's what this power is. It's actually 3 different abilities that they all have access to, because it's either a slam with 10-foot range for the demon, it's a slam with 5-foot range for the drow, or it's a bite with 5-foot range on the spider that deals a different damage type. So it's actually 3 different attacks, but it's for some reason captured in a single stat block. So I wonder if this is one of those examples of the monster manual is like being written, and so they write the Yochlol, and then later on they're writing the lycanthropes, and they're like, oh, actually, you know what? It's clearer if we break this up.
Do you think it might just be formatting? Because if you made 3 small paragraphs of very similar stuff, it would take up more space, and the image wouldn't quite sit as well on the page.
It could be that simple.
Yeah.
No, you're dead right. I mean,
when you're writing a book, you have to take that stuff into account.
You absolutely do, yeah. It's interesting.
Having to take that into consideration, I think, is definitely part of it, because with the lichens and the lycanthropes, they will have enough space per lichen or per whatever to go into whatever they need, instead of having like
it's a bunch of whatevers.
Just have a one whatever stat block, and then just have like slam, bite form, like punch form or whatever.
That whatever's turned into its bite form. Look out.
Whatever. Basically a boggart.
Boggart. That whatever's about to fuck my shit up.
Get it out of my house. I don't want that whatever in here. What an excellent stat block. Shall we go into the dessert time? Is it time for dessert? Is the dessert train coming?
I think it is. I think I hear the rattling of cakes on plates. I couldn't remember what those things were. The like stacked trays that you put cakes on. They look nice.
The kind of trolley things.
Yeah, but like maybe they are called trolleys. I don't know.
Anyway, dessert time.
Anyway. So, what are we thinking with this? Will we start with the blank room, the cupboard of danger?
The cupboard of danger.
Cupboard of danger. In X-Men they have the danger room, like the cupboard of danger. It's just a bit smaller. Get in the cupboard of danger.
Oh no. Yeah, I think this guy would probably be a relatively significant threat, because he has his dominate person to relatively. I mean, with his spell save, it's not like a sure thing that he's going to get this dominate person, and if he doesn't get it, he will have wasted his action. But I think at least, like, I would say 7 times out of 10, he'll probably get it. And so if he gets off his dominate person, I think that he will level the playing field. And maybe that is the kind of linchpin, because like this guy's threat is very much, well, to me at least, that he has this ability to level the playing field, to turn into this form, make you hurt your own party with that, and also to be able to turn into this giant scary spider. And like with everything that he has, I think he's going to be a pretty formidable threat.
I think he has a good amount of like stuff per round. If we think about the idea that I've mentioned before, that was sort of brought up when there was it was actually like a Pathfinder panel. They were talking to like monster designers, and they were saying like, how do you design monsters? And they were like, one of the rules of monsters is that like a player lives in levels and in games, and a monster lives in rounds, because obviously you fight them once and then you leave. And I think in that context, I mean, like, it's got like once per fight, it's going to use its dominate person. It's got 2 spells. Well, I mean, probably won't use detect thoughts during battle. It might use them ahead of time, but let's just assume that it doesn't use it during battle because it's a bit useless. But web can be certainly very useful just to break up the party's positioning and make it harder for them to move around, especially because it can ignore. So maybe it casts web on itself so that it can move away freely while slowing down the party. And then obviously it has its multi-attack, which we've mentioned before is 2 melee attacks. So there's a bit of flexibility there in terms of it has its slams, which do potentially a lot of poison damage, but it can also shove, or if it is in the right form, it might be able to do other things as well.
And with all of its resistances to its classic resistances of cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical attacks, but also the magic resistance, as we have seen with a couple of the previous guys, that means that despite their 136 hit points, that they are still going to last pretty damn long. I'd say this guy would last at least 3 to 5 rounds. I'd say this guy would last.
That feels like a good estimate
on a good day.
Yeah, 3 to 5 rounds. Obviously, like maybe 2 if it's a fully charged party with a lot of like divine magic and holy warriors and stuff like that. Like if they've got like a paladin and a cleric, like probably 2 rounds. Like, but.
Yeah.
If it's kind of a mix, if it's generally a mix, I think you're right. 3 to 5 sounds about right. And of course, then in that notion that it has rounds, we say like, okay, well, probably the first thing it does is it tries to dominate somebody because that'll obviously really help. So it dominates somebody. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. Goes around slamming people. Maybe when it gets below 2/3 health, so in the region of like 40 to 30 health. Maybe at that stage it uses its mist form and tries to escape.
Yeah.
And obviously that lets it use its new power, which lets the party understand how its new power works, and also changes up the notion of the fight. So the fight beforehand was, let's beat up this big climby bastard, and now it's the big climby bastard has turned into mist and it's trying to leave. So let's stop it from leaving, and that's interesting.
I do think that with its dominate person, I think that if you shoot that off first, that's going to kind of dictate how the encounter is basically going to go down. Because I think that if I was running the Yochlol and its dominate person failed, I would basically try to web as much as I could to cause as much restriction to the player's movement, and then simultaneously use my abilities to pick at their edges, just kind of flank them and do my best to move around them. Because I think that this guy will be working to the will of Lolth, and he won't just be like my dominate person didn't work, blah blah blah, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I think it will have a certain amount of strategy to consider.
Although there is an interesting idea that I wonder if the Yochlol has the demon rule of like, if it dies on the material plane, it just comes back in the demon web pits. And in some ways I wonder then if maybe it doesn't run away because it's like it doesn't care because it'll just come back. Like I don't know. I mean I think that's the kind of question that you can think about for your world, because I think it either is the case that like, well, it's only going to come back in its home plane in a few minutes, so it doesn't care if it dies, or well, actually the energy required to send a creature to the material plane is significant enough that Lolth doesn't just always send all of its Yochlols to the material plane. So it's not concerned about its life. It's concerned about the fact that it's going to have to make the journey back, and that's going to be hard. So maybe that's the idea, that it's still functionally the same thing. It still tries to retreat, but not because it's afraid of its own life, just because of it's practically difficult for it to come back.
Yeah, because it also doesn't have plane shift, which I think is unusual for a high challenge rating thing, which I just noted as you were kind of talking there about that, because without that ability, it needs other people basically to get it back to its place, or it dies on the material plane. And I think personally I would make that, like, to reconstruct this Yochlol will take quite a bit of energy from Lolth, and maybe that's an opportunity for your party to strike while the iron is hot,
exactly,
essentially.
Move against Lolth because it's busy, because you've we recently took out 3 of her Yochlols and she only has 8, and they get reconstructed every full moon or something, so we've got a little bit of time until they come back.
That is a party who has done an enormous amount of research, who has gone to the wizards and talked to them and got the information that they need to know how to defeat this threat that they're facing. Best of luck with finding a party that's going to do that. But that is super cool. I think that is an avenue that could definitely be explored by
that's true,
by players, by DMs, by all that kind of stuff, which makes this guy another layer of fascinating. I think.
And I will add one more thing, because I was just checking the spells it has: dominate person and web and detect thoughts. One interesting thing is that, and actually this is sort of worth knowing, and it's handy. Both web and detect thoughts and dominate person. I'm going to double check the detect thoughts so that I'm right, because I'm not sure, but I'm almost positive. They're all concentration spells, which actually means that it can only cast one at a time, which is good.
Web is concentration?
Web is concentration, yeah.
Huh. I would have thought it was just like this spreading out of this gooey goo.
So did I. That's the thing. I assumed it. I was like, I was literally just looking it up to be like, how long does web last? I was like, is it an hour or 10 minutes? But it's actually concentration up to an hour.
That kind of changes the dynamic even.
It does.
Because that's going to change it up, because if you are trying to basically kite your enemies with this web ability, you won't be able to do
more than one.
Much of the other things. You probably wouldn't even be able to go into mist form. Mist form would probably break your concentration on whatever spell you were doing. And if that is dominate person, you've practically wasted that.
Yeah.
One a day.
Actually, no. I don't think you break concentration when you try. Well, actually, interestingly enough, Tim, I think the opposite's true, because when you transform, you don't lose concentration. Unless you lose concentration when you're incapacitated. I actually don't know the interaction there, but
right.
But it's not an action or a reaction. It's a free action in response to a certain thing to make concentration checks. But importantly, concentration checks are Constitution saving throws, which in mist form the Yochlol actually has advantage on. So weirdly, maybe it's actually better for it. Maybe it's better to cast spells and then transform and try to leave. But anyway, sorry. The point I wanted to make originally, I know it's really weird. I assumed web wasn't concentration as well. But the point I wanted to make was the fact that all the spells are concentration is actually a good thing, because it makes the creature easier to run.
Yeah.
Because you can only concentrate on one spell at a time. So you already know what you're doing. You know that the Yochlol will start by casting Dominate Person, because it's its highest level spell. And then after, like, if or when that fails, it will move on to casting Web. And it will cast Web once and try to maintain concentration. And if it fails, it'll probably cast Web again, because it's pretty useful. Like, it's a second level spell, and like being able to cast it at will is pretty handy. And especially because the fact that, like, it's a, let me see here. It's a 20-foot cube, difficult terrain, and lightly obscures the area, so it gives cover. It collapses in on itself if it's not anchored between something, basically. So if you don't use it, so it's a physical object, it has to be attached to things.
Yeah. Basically, in a tunnel is its best spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Each creature that starts its turn in the webs or enters them during their turn makes a saving throw. If they fail, they're stuck. You can use your action to break out. The webs are flammable. You can burn them away with fire damage. But if you set them on fire, the fire actually spreads, and everything else restrained starts to take damage as well. And I think also, if you look at the spiders, it describes how you can also use slashing damage to get rid of webs. Like, you can just hack away at them, which doesn't mention the spell, but I think you can reasonably assume just use the same rules. Like something like if you do, like, it's something like they have an AC of 5 and 10 HP, and like they're immune to piercing damage, because obviously, like, it doesn't really make sense that you could pierce a web to death, but slashing damage is really good and stuff like that. So that's my point, was that it's weird because it changes obviously how we thought the fight would work, and it also is weird because I honestly didn't realize that web was concentration. But good news is this monster is now easier to run, which is a good thing.
Easier to run, but I think also slightly easier to kill.
Yeah, but that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Just send another one.
Yeah.
Just let someone.
Summon another.
Just let us summon. Yeah, summon a friend. Phone a friend.
Yeah, I'd like to phone a friend, please, Chris. Yeah.
So yeah, I think in terms of a beastie measured in rounds, I think it has enough different abilities to keep the fight interesting. I think it's dangerous enough in terms of the amount of damage that puts. Because its average damage is about 26. Yeah, 26. But crucially, a lot of that damage is poison damage, which is fine, because poison is the most common or second most common damage resistance. Like dwarves and some types of dragons are both resistant to poison. So they'll actually take less damage, which is great because it makes them feel good for having this feature that doesn't actually come up that much.
Yeah. I just had a thought there.
Yeah.
For its slam ability, if it gets a crit, would the poison damage be doubled
Yes.
or just the bludgeoning damage?
When you roll a crit, all dice are doubled.
I suppose it just covers you in more goop.
Or the goop gets into a big vein and deals more damage, whatever. Like, it's the same. Like, crits never make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's like they don't make less sense when it's poison. It's like, no, it's always been dumb. It's just now it's dumb and it's hurting me.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, no,
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, it would double the poison, and that would be very bad news.
And it would double the damage, but
And
not
it would
the
double the
modifiers.
damage. Yeah, but not the flat modifiers, just the dice. So it would be 2d6 piercing or bludgeoning and 12d6 poison,
Ooh.
which is quite good.
That's pretty darn good.
I suppose, in fairness, there's an argument then that probably the best thing you can do every round is just make its 2 melee attacks as slams and try to go for like fish for crits.
Yeah. Fish for
those
crits.
fish for the crits is with the big dice.
And hope that you. I think which of the classes can like negate crits? I think it's the grave cleric.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the grave cleric and adamantine armor negate crits.
Ah, yes. Well, if you're wearing big, sparkly, nice blue armor, then nobody wants to crit you anyway because they're like, ooh. Yeah, that was.
Of course, obviously.
Yochlols are famously like magpies. They like shiny things.
So much they don't want to attack them or take them. They just
Yes.
want to leave them alone.
It's like, ooh, that's pretty. I won't attack that, even though it's my mortal enemy. Anyway, I think we went through most of our ideas with regards these guys kind of coming up to this point. But do you have any exterior ideas with regards how we'd use them in world, or any fanciful ideas?
I really like the idea of a Yochlol being a long-running villain. I like the idea of them being being in their female drow form for an extended period and being like sort of a recurring enemy for the party. But I do want, like, I like it notionally because I like the idea of the turnaround. And I like the space there. I think there's some cool space, but the thing I'm trying to figure out is like what their motivation is and what they want,
Right.
and why they're interacting with the party. I mean, I guess it could be as simple as that they are, that they have, or that they are in the process of disrupting some of Lolth's plans, or even just Lolth wants to use them for something, and the best way to do that is to use this Yochlol. Oh, actually, that could be interesting if the Yochlol was effectively bait for the party.
Okay.
So the idea is like the Demon Queen of Spiders figures out like, oh, you know what? The web of fate tells me that this group of adventurers are going to be a fucking pain in the ass. So why don't I use them while they're around? So she sends one of her Yochlols in, sort of a drow disguise to like antagonize the party, and then like because of the fact that like from the big, like, so basically we have the idea that like that they know like, oh, I'm not really like threatened by these party members yet because they're kind of low level.
Yeah.
So then it retreats to places to basically go to the party and following it. So like as a result, say for example, the Yochlol in its drow form retreats to a dungeon, and that dungeon is actually a temple to one of the other demon lords. So Lolth is using the party as sort of a mechanism to attack other demon lords, but through enough layers of abstraction that like it doesn't come back to her, and the party don't care because they're still killing demons. And as far as they can tell, this drow priestess or this drow warrior they're fighting seems to be related to demons, and they're trying to like unpick this mystery as they're pursuing it across different like cults and followings, and like basically like cutting them down as they do.
Cool.
And it's revealed then at the end, like, yeah, I mean, Lolth was using you to get rid of the servants of Gratz and the servants of whatever and all these different guys, and like, that's why there were so many demon cults around. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But then in the end, The real Yochlols was the drow we met along the way.
Did you just come up with that joke and wait?
Yes, I did.
Talking?
Yes, I did. But yeah, that's super cool, because if there is a drow in the world, like, they are going to be hooded, and they're not going to want people to touch them anyway, so people won't figure out that their touch is basically poisonous.
Yeah.
And like, they will be this shady figure in general.
Yeah.
I think that I would probably do something similar, except I'd probably make the drow like their friend, basically, not as like a pawn to, like, just a tail to bring them towards Lolth. I think that Lolth would probably do her best to use the Yochlol to manipulate them into her will. Like,
yeah, I get what you mean.
Maybe someone has slighted Lolth, or like a town has driven a cult to her out of a region that they had inhabited since before the city was around or something, and they got some support from the landlord or something to push out this cult, and so this drow appears. Perhaps that story about the cult being pushed out was unknown to the party, and so this drow just seems like this very sympathetic person who says that her people were pushed out or whatever, and that they were falsely accused of hereticism or all that kind of jazz, and kind of play that angle. Because I love deceiving my players, as you well know, with one of my favorite characters in our campaign.
I like the idea of I like the idea that the Yochlol uses its sort of mostly humanoid, more normal drow form to kind of blend into society for extended missions. Because I don't really understand, because in my opinion that's like the most interesting thing it can do. And yeah, I do like the idea that either it very directly leads the party on, or it just goads them on in certain ways. Or I actually like the idea that the Yochlol has almost like a life, you know what I mean? Like it may be like the leader of a mercenary band or something, and has been doing this for years, and has like an established story, and it's all about kind of unpicking that none of that's true, and it's actually a demon in disguise and stuff like that. I think in that vein, I like the idea that the powers of the Yochlol are associated to this sort of fake drow. It's like, oh, they can transform into a spider and they can cast some spells and blah blah blah. Like the idea, it's not a case of it's like disguising its power. It's just disguising who it is, and it's just like people just assume that's just powers they have. Because realistically, in the world of D&D, people have such a diverse set of powers that it's so hard to associate anything particularly with one set of principles.
Yeah. I do like giving the world a more diverse look than these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, because that makes for a much more interesting story, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the stuff that'll capture people and give them the kind of memorable moments of betrayal, or ooh, they're my real friend, and then betrayal,
and then again,
betrayal.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the thing. The only thing I don't like about that setup I suggested is I still don't really know why Lolth doesn't just kill the party. And I want a good reason for that. So I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't deploy that storyline yet. But yeah, my sort of goal is always that the heroes can do whatever they want because they're the players. But the villains aren't necessarily they're baddies. They're in opposition to the party. But often it's more about that they have their own objectives that they're pursuing, and it's about the intersection between what the party wants and what the villains want, or the party responding to what the villain wants, and that being the conflict. So
I think that could even be almost a mechanic. You could read their intentions. Maybe Lolth has this abyssal witch or something that can sense when somebody's attention has been drawn towards a path towards Lolth, not necessarily good or bad.
Yeah.
So they'll send this drow agent to tantalize them towards something, some greater power, or away from what they are doing. She'll be able to influence their ability, their thought process with regards Lolth, because maybe at the time that their their intention will show up to this witch, they don't know that it's Lolth that they're heading towards. So
yeah.
that might be a cool thing. So that like coming up to a certain point, when your party takes a little bit of a left turn, maybe introduce this new drow character, because this new direction that they've taken can be manipulated towards either fighting Lolth or fighting for Lolth, and so Lolth uses this to recruit her new followers upon the material.
I like that, actually. I like that a lot.
Thanks.
I especially like the notion of like that being like, because the way you described it, like I actually like the idea of that being your kind of backup storyline almost, so that like when the party do something unexpected, where like they skip past like, you know, the intended whatever you had, like if you're like, okay, well, this is what the villain's doing this thing over here, so the party, I guess, will find out through this, and then maybe they'll go deal with it. And if they like don't find out or just don't deal with it, the idea that like they're like, no, we want to do our own thing, we're going to do this, that like you can kind of say, okay, well, that thing they've decided to do is the first step towards Lolth.
Is the trigger.
And yeah, exactly. And now this agent is involved, and I've got these new like story beats to hit with them.
Yeah.
And again, you can keep that kind of notion of like they can sort of, and the best thing about that is obviously if they then find out what's going on with the villain and go back, that like Lolth is very patient, obviously, because spiders.
Yeah.
So that she'll be like, so that she'll like, if it's obvious that the party are like doing other things, she'll probably tell her agent like, okay, pull back. You know what? Like, let them do their own thing. Maybe just see if we get lucky and they just die. You know what I mean? Like, because that's easier for me. Or like, if they die, I can recruit them as undead servants, and then they have to serve me forever, or whatever. But I like that a lot. That's a cool kind of, that's an interesting like reserve plot beat.
Because I don't think that, well, you could have Lolth and all of this as like your primary story that you're trying to tell, but I think that because it is spiders, as you say, it is spies and clandestine working in the shadows, the drow, the underdark, that it may not be an immediate threat to the world that you will have presented to your players. So introducing this is a nice kind of side alley that you could take.
And even like something we've mentioned before, the idea of like the kind of the persistent drow spy who is actually a Yochlol, especially from like sort of lower levels up to level 10, where they get ready to fight this thing, or it just jumps them. It's one of those, that's a great example of a very natural lead on to the notion that like as you get to higher levels, the concerns of the material plane start to fall away, and it becomes about like what are other dimensions doing and how can they threaten our world. So like, you know, the climax of this plot is you fighting this sort of drow, and they reveal their true form, and you battle them, and maybe you find, because as you said before, Tim, they don't have the ability to plane shift natively, so maybe their base is set up around a portal into the abyss. And so now it's about, okay, well now we have this portal into another realm, but are we ready to go in there? Are we like, can we leave it alone, or is it too dangerous? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
like if we shut it down, is that just going to shut down our only access to them?
Exactly.
They can just open another portal somewhere else.
So that's like, and then that like very naturally introduces the notion of now the adventure will take place across the planes, and now it's going to be about, you know, getting into the abyss and what that's like, and maybe even rerouting the portal to let you into somewhere friendlier or whatever.
It's like a Stargate.
Exactly.
I think that's just about us, right?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Any final notes or just fleeting thoughts about the old Yochlol?
It would be cool. Sorry, just the only because it's kind of a goopy monster, I don't think there's a lot of room for monster huntering it. But I will say its eye would be a cool artifact that gave you the ability to detect thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe also give you that dark vision up to 120 feet that it has. So like literally like it's the eye, and you put it on a necklace, or you wear it as part of a tiara or something. And then it's like you get dark vision 120 feet, and you can cast detect thoughts however often makes sense for your party. Like my default would be like 3 times a day. I don't know.
You could collect some of its goop in a bucket and then throw it over one of your enemies for 66 damage, because I think 66 is a lot of damage for like, ooh, I have this one vial of poison. So I think a bucket is the most reasonable method of carrying some Yochlol goop. A small tin bucket. that you always carry around with you.
Do you have a
and you're
bucket?
constantly spilling it. You have a bucket?
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Some of my final thoughts were, because its name is Yochlol, I could have come up with a bunch of like lines that I could build into this episode that were just the an anagram for Yochlol, like you only catch him laughing out loud, or something like that. Like
That's pretty good.
right? Like when you're talking with this drow, you only catch him laughing out loud when he's like in his private chambers, you know. I could have done something like that.
Yep,
And
that's
I've
true.
inspired myself for future episodes.
That's
So,
fun. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. One other final thought. It can only appear as a female drow, and so maybe the Yochlol is gendered female. Maybe it identifies as a female.
Yeah. Well, it's a handmaiden of
Yeah,
of love.
exactly. Yeah, and I think that's like handy because we get a lot of sort of ungendered demons, and so the notion that they have that perspective can add to the game.
Yeah. Like with the Marilith as well is always female,
Yeah,
as far as
exactly,
I
yeah.
can remember.
Oh, that would be really cool if you like, I don't know, like we're in control of a Yochlol and made it into like your handmaiden, because they're like very good handmaidens because they have like insight and they're like very like clever and they're good at noble courts. I don't know. Anyway,
Good final thoughts.
yeah,
Solid, weird meta joke that would only be funny to people who re-listen to the episode, and a cool idea for a hook for this bizarre, weird cheese whiz monster. Easy single slices melted over a tree trunk. So thank you very much for listening to us again, this new episode. I'm back, obviously.
He is.
You got your homebrew episode last week, which was a labor of love for
Yeah,
me.
you
I
did great.
really put in a lot of effort into editing that episode, and it felt really great to, like, what happened was my previous laptop had died with the half completed episode on it. So I was able to turn my laptop on once, since I was pretty sure it was dead, and I immediately saved everything to an external hard drive.
Oh,
Like,
that's
I back
good.
stuff up pretty frequently,
Yeah.
but I had been working on the episode the day before it shut down, so I was
Yeah.
like, no. I mean, I think we'd pretty effectively be able to record that episode again, because
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
we'd only be coming at it with relatively fresh eyes, you know.
yeah, exactly.
Or we could do the next episode of Homebrew that we're going to be planning, and then do the first one second.
Yes, yeah.
If I want to mess with time travel and timelines and stuff. But yeah, that was my little freak out, essentially. But here I am. I'm back again. I have my recording setup all working perfectly again, and I'm very happy. And thank you to Ivy, my wife, for helping me out with getting this new laptop while I'm over here in the Americas, still working out my citizenship over here. So
Your visas.
my visa. Well, I have my visa. It's
You're
adjustment
very
of status at this
parent.
point. Yes, got lots of documents and all that jazz. But still having a good time and having enough time to work on my music and work on this, because I mean, we've said it multiple times before I even came over here that I really, really love working on Creature Club. It's a true passion project. Like, I don't think that I would spend half the amount of time editing. Like, I'd say I spent upwards of 6 hours 6 hours editing that last episode, the homebrew episode, in
Wow.
2 solid 3-hour chunks. So it feels really good to have this great product that I have worked on with my two of my besties, you know.
That's
Feels
us.
good. That Daniel boy and that other one, Absent Mikey. Say hello to everyone, Absent Mikey.
And the other one. He's not in the room, so I've forgotten what he's called.
What's his name again? Oh yeah, Mikey DC.
Local, something like that? I can't remember.
True golden boy. Fantastic. Best boy, I dare say.
Oh my god. Controversial.
Indeed. But yes, we are available on Spotify, as you all probably are listening to us on. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on a whole bunch of other podcasting things. I think Oh, I can't even remember. I keep finding us on different ones. We're on Player FM, I believe.
Yeah.
They keep sneaking up on me. And we are also on Twitter at Creature Club Pod, Creature Club Pod, or just search Creature Club Podcast, and we'll probably be one of the first ones. Our little D20 with the nice artisan hat and our little logo is our profile picture. And we frequently are on there. We'll post updates to the episodes, and then we each individually respond to our own posts and from our own Twitter accounts.
Yes, we're not nearly organized enough to do it as a unified whole or anything like that.
Not quite yet. Well, maybe eventually we'll get.
I like the way we do it, to be honest, but
I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it feels maybe less formal, but it needs to be formal when you're just having a good time anyway.
Exactly.
Formality would only take away from it, and you'd have to learn all the formalities of networking. And I considered actually talking about. We'll talk about it after the episode. My thoughts, but we. Is that it? Did I cover everything?
You can contact us on our Contact Us page on the website, or you can contact us on creatureclubpodcast@gmail.com. That's the best place to drop us any homebrews you have. We are always looking for them, as we've mentioned before. We've done 2 homebrew specials now, which is very cool. We'll probably do a 3rd with all the stuff we still have. But that doesn't mean we won't do a 4th or a 5th or even a 6th if you keep sending us things. And yeah, they're great fun. And we release a document afterwards that has all the stuff in them, so you can get them all in a nice handy package. Those are on the DMs Guild right now, actually, if you do want them. The first and the second Creature Club homebrew specials both have their own little volumes, which are about, they're only 4 or 5 pages each. They're totally free, and you can just literally steal them and use them in your campaigns, and it's great.
Yeah, all fascinating, handy monsters of virtually all levels of play. The 1 to 5, the 5 to 10, the 10 to 15. Solid. Even some solid whole campaign building materials, you know.
Indeed.
That's part of what we do all of this for. We want to help you guys to grow your own worlds, your own homegrown worlds. But yeah.
And here's one we made earlier.
Here's one I made earlier. But shall I read a review, or shall we save that for all 3 of us being on here?
We'll save it. We'll shave it.
Because there is one new one.
Ooh.
And it's a good one.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, again for listening. I've been Tim.
And I've been Dan. Stay cool. Will I say it?
Stay hot. No, don't be hot.
Damn it. How does he do it?
I don't know. You had it there, and then you tripped me up, and I didn't know what to say. No one can do it like he does.
It's true.
Anyway.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Goodbye. Drow and true form, a Yochlol's touch carries the same venomous touch as a spider's form, as the spider. I'll start that again.